Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the Rock Recap from the Rock Church Bay Area. We have just closed out our very first revival series, or part of the series, I should say. We're kicking off a 4-week Revival 2021 here at the Rock Church. And today we had Pastor Welton Smith from Detroit, Michigan, New Life Family Church, who gave us such a powerful message. Incredible, incredible. And so who I have here today to help kind of talk about our takeaways, Deaconess Jenise Gunter, Brother Cory Dillon, and Deaconess Latrise Edwards. So, hey guys.
Hey there.
Wasn't today amazing?
Oh, powerful. Yes.
Exactly. I'm like tons and tons of notes for this one. Oh, so good, so good. So for those that may just be joining us for the first time, for Rock Recap, we literally just talk about our takeaways. It's kind of like your after church powwow, right? You might be in the parking lot chatting normally if we were in person, or you go have brunch and you chat about what really resonated with you. And so that's really what we do. We take a few minutes after the worship experience and talk about that. So let's jump right in. Today, Pastor Welton talked specifically about Isaiah 43:18 and Acts 1. And he really talked about our future. I feel like this was a message of hope. He started out by saying, for one, type in the comments, my future is secure. I mean, that gave us a quick, if you didn't know what he was going to talk about, you knew immediately with that. And it was one of those moments where you're like, okay, he gets it. Right now, I think with a lot that's going on, there's questions, right? People are wondering about what their future looks like and maybe what could be happening. And Pastor Welton wanted us to say, hey, be cognizant of what you're feeling, but just know that God's got you. And so he titled the message, The God of the Next Thing. And he really wants us to make sure that we're focusing on God for our future. So I just wanted to start out by just saying what from you all, for you all, stood out the most when you think about your future, the fact that God's got you, the fact that there may be questions that we all have, but what did that really mean to you when you heard him say, the God of the next thing?
I guess I'll be the first to speak. I took that as the games are over. You know, God has given us enough time to prepare and shift. Now we've been in this quarantine season for quite some time. We can see that things will never be what they once were, and that we've had a period to adjust and do what it is that we must now, especially, you know, the body of Christ. We're supposed to be the trendsetters of the world. You know, we're supposed to be the ones that lead us, that lead the people and go out and set the tone for the world. And we've had enough of the grace period to where now we must go out and put in the work to show the world what it's supposed to be during this shift, you know?
That's good, Brother Cory. That's so good.
That's real good.
I mean, I echo what Brother Cory said, that it's just created a major shift in us. And Pastor Welton talked about how this shift was necessary. And he said that the shift was for me, it was for around me, and it was in me. And I just think about all of the things that just has been flipped upside down in my life. And it's brought about a lot of feelings, a lot of discomfort, a lot of anxiety, a lot of just emotions that I've never felt. And something that really struck a chord with me when he was saying, get out of your feelings. He said, these are great indicators, but we're never meant to be dictators. And I will say that I'm guilty of sometimes allowing my feelings to dictate some of my actions. And so that just really hit hard for me, where I'm like, I mean, this has been a unique year. It's been very chaotic. There's been a lot that's happening. There's a lot that's unknown, right? As we're continuing to shift even into these new phases and these new seasons. But just knowing that my future is secure in God, and that just like all the things that he did in the past, he's going to bring to pass those things in the future. And so it was just confirmation that I just need to continue to trust and have faith and get out of my feelings. I think that's my biggest thing that I'm taking away.
Yes. I want to pause there for a second, because that is so big. Pastor Chris always tells us your feelings can ride, but they can't drive. And so it's one of those where it's a reminder that you acknowledge, you know, we don't suppress them. We don't act like I got it. I'm good. I'm fine. You know, we're all guilty of that, but that doesn't serve you well. Right. So we're reminded of with what you're saying, Deaconess Jenise. Be aware of your feelings, be cognizant of them, try to understand them, but don't sit and dwell and allow them to just pull you down to where you lose your forward motion, you lose your hope, you lose, what can still be. And so, and that's not easy. We can't do it by ourselves. We know that God is where we go to as our source. But we also know that our church family is our support system. Pastor talked about, before the sermon started, he talked about how the family, like the church family and what that means and how we support one another through all that's going on and all that we're watching on television, and all that we see. So I just feel like it's just a reminder. Your feelings are there. Yes, acknowledge them, but do not dwell and sit there. So super glad you brought that point up, Jenise. Deaconess Latrise, I think you were going to say something else.
Oh, yeah, I agree with Deaconess Jenise and Brother Cory, and also you, Sis Danielle. My future is secure. By him just saying it, that was it right there. Knowing that moving forward, knowing that God has me, I without a doubt, even when fear wants to rise up, I can go back to his word and says that God has me. And what resonated with me the most is that, he took us back to the word, letting us know that, God said that he was going to take care of us. God said that he was going to flip some things around in our life. God said that he was going to do all these things because there's a new thing that's getting ready to happen in our lives. No more of what we did before, but it's a new thing. And the new thing is not something that we have seen before, right, but it's something new. New.
Yeah. That
resonated with me. Oh, I was in my living room messed up.
Right.
I was messed up.
I believe that the true character of a person is shown when the unexpected happens. Yeah. So you have times to where, it's convenient and it's easy to do things, when you're in the groove, when it's, it becomes the norm. What will you be and who are you when tough times or unknown times set upon you? Who will you become and what will you turn to? What are the things that you'll depend on when nothing looks the same?
Right. Right. I agree.
That's good. That's so good. When Pastor Welton, to add to what you're saying, Deaconess Latrise, when Pastor Welton spoke about Isaiah 43, and he basically said, God's already started to do what he's going to do. And what he's going to do doesn't even compare to all that you're kind of dealing with at the moment. And so that is so powerful. Not only can we believe and hope in what is to come, but we can also sit confidently in knowing that it's already begun. Right. That speaks so much volume.
Yeah, it's like you transitioned and you didn't even know that you were transitioning. You didn't even know that God was moving. You didn't even understand why God was doing this and why he was placing people in your life and why they said this and what. You didn't even know it. And that's just how God is. He also mentioned about things happen suddenly.
Yes.
To us, we suddenly went into COVID. Kids can't go to school no more. Suddenly, I'm working from home. Suddenly, I'm trying to figure out how do I balance and keep a schedule being at home. It suddenly happened. That just, okay, he messed me up. Okay, just know that word messed me up.
Yes. Oh, I love that. When you say suddenly, Deaconess Latrise, what I'm reminded is as quickly as we entered into this new world, that's how quick change on a positive way can actually occur as well. So for those, I'm just reminded for myself, like I'm literally speaking to myself right now, the things that I thought would have happened by now, the things that I'm kind of putting in the realm of time's running out, I'm just reminded that God operates outside of time, and the things that would maybe normally take X amount of, months, years, or whatever to happen. Who's to say that that's necessary for my future? Because in God's hands, it could happen suddenly. And so I'm just reminded that, just again, trust know that all the things I'm waiting for will still come. And the time that I'm associating to it, the timeline I think that makes the most sense is really irrelevant at this point because God's will is truly the timeline for my future. So
I agree.
I think, Sister Danielle, you said something important too about, yes, things happen suddenly, and how Pastor Welton talked about it's going to happen out of nowhere. It's going to be in your face. It's going to be suddenly and all of these things. But at the same time, he talked about the importance of waiting. He said sometimes we're expecting God to move, right? And we're just there anxiously waiting. But the word from the Lord is simply just to wait and to sit there and be still. He said just as much faith as it is to stay busy and have faith, like sometimes you have to have even more faith just to sit there and wait and just let the move of God happen in his time. And I think that especially in this season where it's just so much unknown and so much discomfort and just literally we've been in this waiting pattern, right? Waiting to see when we're going to get into the next phase, waiting to see when kids will go back to school, when the offices are going to open up, when I can eat, indoors again, right? All of this waiting, and it's just a lot of that brings those anxious feelings that can get us, outside of our heads and constantly want to move and do things and take control of situations, but ultimately we don't have control. So sometimes, the word of the Lord is just to sit there and wait, right? As hard as that is.
I truly agree. That is spot on for me. I really believe that faith is the X factor through it all. If you don't have faith through this whole quarantine time to where everything, like he said, everything is flipped around, everything is turned upside down. Without faith, you really have nothing to hang on to because nothing is normal anymore, or what we consider to be normal. So with the new times about, and like he said, the shift between two worlds, what will now be the hybrid, or what will be what we once knew and what will be soon to come. How will we adjust? What will we turn into? And will we be the ones to lead into the future?
Yeah. So true. So true.
That made me think of something. Oh, go ahead, Sister Jenise.
No, please, Deaconess Jenise.
Oh, when you said future, it just made me think of Pastor Welton said, you're called to create history and they're called to repeat history. So he was talking about how in this waiting period, and as we're waiting for the next move of God, this whole notion of restricted access, and not everybody's going to be able to come with you in that next season, in that next phase, right? And there's reserved seats. And so knowing that we're called for something greater, we're called to create history and not repeat history. And sometimes those around us are not going to be able to come alongside us on that.
Yeah, he also said about be careful who has access to you.
Yeah.
And I said, that is so true. So what resonated with me is that now I need to sit back and see who has access. Why they can't go with me to the future. Maybe they don't have the capacity to go there with me, but taking time to really think about who has access, who I am allowing to have access to it. So that resonated with me. I agree with you, Sister Jenise.
Yeah. So true. He said restricted access, just like Deaconess Latrise said, be careful who you allow to have access to you in your life, and particularly in this season while God is working on you. And then he challenged us and said, live out the next season of your life on purpose. I mean, I just want to hear your thoughts on that. Live out the next season of your life on purpose. What does that really mean to you when you hear that statement?
What I take it as, once again, reflecting on the times that we're in, what would we do different if we knew that time was coming? How would we prepare for it? What things would we have capitalized on, even if we knew that this quarantine time would be so long? What would we have accomplished? What goals would we have set to know that we'd be, you can pretty much say, going on 2 years of being indoors and everything just kind of being completely turned around. If there was a platform or the layout of everything that was to take place, we would handle it differently, So I say live every day exactly the way that you want to be in a vessel of the Lord, you know?
That's good, Brother Cory. That's good. How about you, ladies? Any thoughts on living out your next season on purpose?
For me, it just really means being intentional and, in everything that I do, being intentional with, the people that I surround myself with, being intentional of the conversations that I have, being intentional of the environments that I put myself into and the things that I expose myself to, just really thinking through what are the things that are going to help me in this season and help perpetuate me into the next season of my life, and being very intentional. And, Pastor talked about, we didn't need the church building, right? The church building, didn't, these are the basis of our foundation and our salvation, right? So it's like knowing that, things are different, and I have to, be intentional about my walk with Christ and make that a priority and make that a daily routine. And I can't let the fact that we're not in person and I'm not having that worship and that time to connect with, other believers, like I have to make that a priority for myself, right? And I think that's a lot harder in this space, right? When we're so used to being comfortable, and just knowing that everything that you do is with intent.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good. I agree with Deaconess Jenise. Being intentional, and what resonated with me was just being creative. Being creative in this season, and not allowing, my feelings or fear to come in and interrupt when God is prompting me to be creative in the area, or to be intentional in the area, but to just go for it, know that God got me and that He has secured me in whatever level or whatever situation it may be. God has me. And so just being creative, I would say that going into the next level, that's what I would be intentional about.
That's good. I love what all three of you said. I guess for myself, as I think about it, intentional is clear. I would also remind myself that during this time, all of my senses are heightened. So everything I see, everything I feel, everything I think, like, I'm just reminding myself, be aware that everything I feel is heightened. And so stay in perspective. When I'm thinking about the future, when I'm making my day-to-day decisions, make sure that I'm intentional with them, and that I'm intentionally making sure that my decisions are not coming from an emotional place, and that I kind of check my filter and check my lens on a regular basis. How am I viewing things? What's my perspective look like? How has my perspective shifted from yesterday or last week? What happened during that day or last week that impacted the way that I viewed it? Like, really getting to it at a granular level, just to make sure that I kind of check myself. And so I think for me, that's what I would add.
Sister Danielle, that makes me think of something that I want to make sure I don't leave out, because I think that self-awareness piece is very big, right? And just being, aware of the things that are happening and going on. And Pastor Welton said, warfare is assigned to me, and that there are some enemies that are assigned to me. And I think we can't be naive in the sense that, even though as we're moving into these next seasons, right, and God is continuing to work, right, there are going to constantly be enemies and vices that are going to continue to attack, right? And even as we elevate and we get stronger in our walk, I know for me, every time I get more connected and more stronger and have more faith, the enemy comes in like, and deep in the night, right, trying to attack again, right? And it's kind of this vicious cycle. So I think being aware that these are going to continue to happen, right, and just expecting and waiting and being patient with God and knowing that God's got us. And Pastor Welton talked about this fresh wind, this fresh power that God is going to release on us, and really standing and believing in that.
I agree, Deaconess Jenise. I think a lot of the times we forget that trials and tribulations oftentimes benefit our endurance. Some of the things that we go through, the storms that we weather, are truly blessings. They make us better, and we get to understanding because we can dissect God's word and say that even though this is a storm, it isn't the end. Everything that we've been through, it isn't the end. It's something that we go through and we come out stronger. And now we have another notch on the belt to go forward and be that much stronger for something to occur later on. So by his stripes we're healed. It's such a blessing to be able to go through things and have a testimony to give to others that can tell them, we've made it through this.
Yes. Oh, that's so good, Brother Cory. It reminds me of something that Pastor Chris has said in the past, that the things you go through or like the pain that you may experience actually broadens your level of influence or broadens the audience that you can connect with and impact. And so often when we may say, why me? Pastor says, why not me? And then to take it a step further, the more that you actually go through, the more people you can actually reach and empathize with and connect with. So I love that you mentioned that, because it just reminds us of another perspective to view our situations through. So very, very good. Well, we have come to the close of our conversation. This has been amazing. I do just want to ask, any final thought, just that one burning thing that you had that you're like, I wanted to get it out. Feel free just to share that for a moment.
Oh, I had so many. I don't know. I had so many. I think towards the end, Pastor Welton just really, he encouraged us to be ready for the sudden, be ready for what's coming next in our lives. And he also encouraged us, letting us know that because Pastor Chris is of the future, we are all of the future. And that's what we have to go believing and knowing that we are game changers, reimagining, we are everything in our lives. Old things have passed away, but behold, all things are now become new. So that's what I would like to say.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
I'll say my major takeaway, and the thing that I think that often the church doesn't speak on sometimes, is the patience. Like he said, what can you do? All you can do is wait. Sometimes, because a lot of the times we're so used to being doers. Something is going wrong, we want to fix. And oftentimes we don't rely on God. And when we ask him, can we wait? If he's saying nothing, then maybe we should do nothing at that time. The confirmation and what we're supposed to do. So I really want everyone to learn to be more patient and just sit in whatever he has us in until he delivers us elsewhere.
That's excellent.
And I would just say, I feel like one thing I'm gonna add to my sticky note, just to see, remind myself, is I'm called to reframe the future. And I think when you have that at the forefront as a mindset, that you can't look back, right? Like, you're focused on the future, you're expecting, you're patiently waiting for what's to come and how God's going to move, right? And you're not worried about what already happened, all of the past, right? You're not concerned with that, right? So just having that mindset of focusing on the future, because I think that's just empowering and helps you push forward.
I love it. I love it. And for me, and I think I saw in the comments, others have agreed that this is my season to re-exist. I love that Pastor Welton said that. And he reminded us not to let the frustration from the last thing reduce like the fuel and the effort and the hope that you have in what's in the next thing. So that's my kind of final thought there. But thank you guys so much. This was a great conversation. Inviting everyone back next week for an amazing part 2, right? Our next step, or our next piece of the series for Revival 2021. So with that, hope you all have a wonderful Sunday and a great week ahead.
Thank you.